Welcome to Property Mama, where I share my adventures in real estate, buying and selling homes over the last 28 years. So I have seen quite a few things, as you can imagine. My name, if we've not met before, my name is Wendy Chamberlain, and I'm a buyer's agent, and seller vendor advocate here in Melbourne, Australia. So for each episode, I share the goings on that have happened at various points in time when it comes to dealing with real estate agents buying and selling homes. Now, on the weekend, I was having a really interesting conversation with a local here near to where I live, and he was telling me the story about a property, a local property that quite a few years ago now it came onto the market. And really interesting story. He ended up buying it when it came on the market, but it had been in the one family for many, many years. It was quite a well known home locally in the area. It was on a fairly main street as well, which when I tell you the story, you're going to think, well, okay, it was on a main street. So it was owned by a family, and the way that he described it, he said they were hillbillies. And so everything was overgrown. The home became so overgrown that you couldn't even see that there was a house there anymore. There were so many trees overgrowing this property, you couldn't even see the property. And the owners were hoarders. Now, we're talking about full on hoarders where you've got things that are stacked to the ceiling and that you can hardly even move about the property. So this was owned by the parents who passed away, and then I believe the one or two of the brothers moved into the property. So when they moved in, they had motorbikes and car parts and all kinds of things. And he said that the property in the backyard, you couldn't even move in the backyard. It was so overgrown, and there were bits of cars everywhere. There was all kinds of things in the back garden. You could just imagine. Now, in the house, when I don't know if you've seen on shows on TV where you see when someone is a hoarder, like a serious hoarder, they collect everything and the items are in the house and you can't even move in the house. And he said that, as an example, that they would, when they lit a match, the burnt match was put back into the box with the other burnt matches. And then that box of burnt matches was put into a larger box. So that's where the burnt matches lived. And this was back in the day, this might have been back in the 70s, that on milk bottles, there used to be little tin, I don't know if you can remember if you're listening to listening to this episode and you can remember back in the day when there was milk and milk bottles, they had foil caps on them and used to peel the foil cap back. So they collected every single one of these foil caps and stored them in a box. And he said there was over 10,000 of these little caps that were stored in a box. So that's the level of hoarding that we're talking about. Nothing was thrown out. When there was a bread tie, the bread tie was put into its own little box, which when that filled up was put into a bigger box. So they kept everything. And you know, you might have seen it. Like we've got newspapers and everything. And so the hoarding continued from the children in this particular property. And it was so overgrown that you couldn't see the house, as I said. So what happened over time was because of the amount of stuff in this house, it started to buckle under the weight. So the actual house and the floor started to fail. And things started to shift because there was so much gear of all manner of things. Well, can you imagine living for multiple years and you threw nothing out? Nothing. So if a paper bag, plastic bag, anything came in, nothing went out. One assumes they must have thrown some rubbish out, but I don't know. So the absolute weight of everything that was in the house caused it to buckle and to sag to the point that you could no longer open windows and you couldn't open doors in this property because the stuff was just falling in on it. And he said that there was a very tiny little path from the back door through to, like, you would have to go sideways to the kitchen at the sink, and there was a very small spot that you could be at the sink. And there was also a tiny little, I was going to say hallway, laneway, where you could make your way to the bed in the bedroom. And I imagine there was the same thing to get to the bathroom. But because over time the house started collapsing, the windows and the doors became covered. And what ended up happening is that this person got locked in the house. They couldn't get out of the house because so many things were covering the doors and the windows. Plus, with the house collapsing, things didn't move. So they actually could not open the doors and the windows. And they starved to death in the house. Can you imagine? They starved to death in the house. And 6 months later, they found the bones of this person in the house. It's terrible, isn't it? That nobody knew they were in the house, or even like they had nobody that could check on them while they're in the house to check on their welfare, nothing like that, which is just unbelievable when you think about it. It's very sad. So, and he said that when the house was sold, they still couldn't get into the house, and they were just like going on the windows and looking through the windows to try and look at the property because they still couldn't get, and you couldn't see the house from the street, so nobody knew. It's just wild, isn't it, that somebody could basically get imprisoned in their own home and nobody even realised they were in there, and then 6 months later, their bones get found. Yeah, so I thought that was a very interesting story about real estate. In a previous episode, I shared about this negotiation that we've had that went ongoing in the lead up to Christmas last year. And so it's an ongoing saga. As I said, I shared about the actual purchase of the property and the real estate agent getting so agitated at the thought of probably missing out on the deal, because as it turned out, as the week went on, it became crystal clear to me that there was nobody else. There was absolutely nobody else that was anywhere near in a position to buy the property. That was the long and the short of it, despite what the agent had said earlier in the week. When you're listening and you know what to listen for, you can pick up on the little changes, the nuances in the conversation to know, aha, I realise what you just said there, you've got nobody else. And so as I said, the deal went on all week, and it was the Friday morning before the auction, and the agents were getting very, very concerned at this point because the vendors were going to have to fly down from wherever they were interstate to Melbourne to attend this auction, and they really didn't want to. And I can imagine that the vendors weren't seeing any point in that, given that we were the only buyers that the agent had. We were. At the end of the day, that's ended up being the case. And so they needed this negotiation to go through. And so on the Friday, we ended up agreeing on terms. So my client wanted a longer settlement. And finally, the vendor agreed to that. And so a little bit of argy-bargy back and forth on the price, and then there was the terms. Now, it was a longer settlement, and the property was presented for sale vacant. And we had a conversation with the real estate agent around that, and they're like, no, they're not going to rent it out. There's no point renting it out, blah, blah, blah. So my client proceeded on the basis that the property would be left vacant. Now, as you may be aware, that the law states in relation to a tenancy that there is what's called fair wear and tear. And what that means is that when somebody lives in a property, there is bits and pieces, scuff marks, this kind of thing, that are considered by those that decide these things, what is reasonable and what is not. Now, I can tell you what I think of fair wear and tear is not what other people or someone else might consider to be fair wear and tear. And what I mean by that is my version of fair wear and tear is way less of what is allowed to happen. And I'll give you an example. So in one of our properties, which has timber floorboards, the tenant, so beautiful, polished timber boards. The tenant decided to put their washing machine out on and sit them out on these polished boards. So you're talking, what's a washing machine? 600 by 600 or 750 by 750 square. And whilst it was sitting, it wasn't being used, but whilst it was sitting on the floorboards, it leaked. It leaked. And there was a green patch from the leaking. The leaking damaged the floorboards, and there was a green patch that was left when they moved the washing machine back to where it was supposed to go. It had marked the floorboards, so it was very obvious. Like, you've got this green tinged patch on the floor, very, very, very obvious. That was deemed by, I think, is it the Rental Bond Authority, or whoever gives you the bond back, that was deemed to be fair wear and tear. The fact that they basically trashed our floor, and in order to repair the floor, we had to get it redone. So they didn't have to pay for that because that was fair wear and tear. So I very much disagree with what is considered to be fair wear and tear. And so because it's generally stuff that you would, if you as an owner living, you wouldn't like the things done to your house, but things just seem to be, they get away with doing things that are taking things a bit far, in my opinion. Only my opinion. So the property that we're looking to buy had been freshly painted, and the carpets looked pretty fresh and so forth, because carpet's another big one. And so there is just wear and tear. On any traffic areas, things get worn out. They get dirty. They can just, they just get worn. And we proceeded on the basis that the property was going to be left vacant because that's what we got told. Well, everything went under contract on the Friday. All good. Auction was cancelled. We're proceeding to buy the property. It's the next week. A few days into the next week, and I get a call from the real estate agent. It was about 8 o'clock at night or something. And I said, oh, what's up? And he goes, you're not going to like this. I said, what? What am I not going to like? He goes, oh, the vendor has decided to rent out the property. And I go, what do you mean they're renting out the property? You told us that the property was not going to get rented. And we proceeded to purchase the property based on the fact it was being left vacant. And he said, oh, I know, but, they're well within their rights to do it. So this is like, do not believe a thing that comes out of a real estate agent's mouth. You know what? If the lips are moving, get it in writing. Get it in writing, because you can't. My experience has shown me, like, obviously, not everybody, and I say this every time, there's great agents out there, but there's enough difficult to deal with agents, or agents that are fluid with the truth. They don't care, because what happens is once a property is under contract and it's unconditional, the agent wipes their hand of it. They don't care. It doesn't matter what was verbally agreed to, what the conversations were. If it's not in writing, it's not written on the contract, or it's documented somewhere, you can basically say that it didn't happen. And so, all care, no responsibility as far as the attitude of this real estate agent. It's like, oh, yeah, I know that's what we said, but they've said this. Now they've decided we can't do anything about it. My clients were ropeable because they have proceeded with their negotiation based on a property being vacant and remaining vacant. Because if they knew there was going to be a tenant put into the property during this settlement period, they likely would have negotiated a different deal. That's the reality of it. But the agent told us one thing and then flipped it. So, as you would expect, based on that, the fact that they were going to put a tenant into the property, my client said, we want to get lots of photos and videos of the property. And I said, I totally agree. I'll make a time to go organise to go and inspect the property, and I'll take lots of videos and photos. So we have a snapshot of what the property was like when we purchased it. So then if something happens, we can compare it and say, well, this is the situation and the condition it was in. This is now the condition it's in. And something may have to get repaired if it has been damaged. Okay. So you would think that's fair enough. So I made a time with the real estate agent to go in through the property at 2 o'clock, whatever day it was. And they're like, yeah, no worries, we'll meet you there. So I'm getting ready to go to this property, and it was just before, it was about 10 to 2. And I get a call from the real estate agent. And she says, I'm going to have to cancel the 2 o'clock because the vendor's actually living here and they're not letting you through. And I go, what are you talking about? They said, well, the vendors come in from interstate and they're staying in the property, and they have said that you're not allowed to inspect the property for my clients until the final inspection. You're not allowed in. And I said, well, we need to take photos and videos. And they said, well, again with the agent, oh, well, it's nothing we can do. That's what we're deciding. What you can do is that it's going to be advertised for rent. You can come through the rental. When it's advertised for rent, you can line up with everybody else and come and inspect the property, and you can take your photos and your videos then. I'm like, honestly, sometimes this is what it's like dealing with real estate agents. Yes, whatever is most convenient for them. And again, they wipe their hands. Contract's been signed, property's unconditional. My client has to settle on the property. The fact that the vendor wants to put a renter in the meantime is by the by. So, and the agents are showing me saying, oh, well, we'll get the best quality tenant in there. And look, how do you know that? How can you can't control when somebody moves into a property, how they treat the property. And it doesn't matter how much money you rent it out for per week. You can't tell me that you know exactly how any single person is going to live inside of that property. You can't. You don't know. So anyway, they said, oh, when it's going to be open, you can come through. Now, this ended up being the first week of the new year. So I was keeping an eye on when it was available to go through. And, well, bless their cotton socks, they allowed a 30-minute inspection instead of the normal 15 minutes that you get for a rental. So I went there and I lined it up with everybody else to have a look at this property, which was obviously going to be put on the market for rent. Now, as I said, this is a landmark property in the area, and it's huge. It's a big property. So, right, I was there just as the agent came. And so as quickly as I could, I was going through the property and I was documenting everything. I was taking videos, I was taking photos, and the property was huge, like multiple levels. It was at the back. There was different parts of it. So I'm doing this as thoroughly as I can, as quickly as I can. And there's lots of other people there, but just neighbourhood looky-loos, sticky beaks. Could never afford to rent it based on what they were trying to rent it for. Would never be approved for the rental based on what the agent has told me about the type of tenant they're going to get in there that's going to look after this property. So that was interesting. And I was overhearing what people were saying and so forth. And because it was only a short-term rental, that actually put a lot of people off, happily. But so I'm going through as quickly as I can. And I end up taking over 800 videos and photos of this property for my client because I wanted to document as much as I could because this is a statement landmark property with gorgeous marble fireplaces and ceiling chandeliers, and it's just stunning. And I was taking pictures across, I can't even tell you how many fireplaces are in this house. There's so many. And as I said, there was only the 30 minutes. And during the 30 minutes, I had seen the agent, and she'd seen me taking photos and videos, not a problem. And I'd said to her, because she said, oh, are you interested in the property? I said, no, my client has purchased the property, but your vendor won't let us in to take photos, so I'm doing it now. And she's like, oh, okay. So I'm going as quickly as I can to be as thorough as I can. And I still hadn't got to the outside of the property because there was another wing outside, like converted old stables at the back. And I could hear her coming through the house. So I'm nipping into all the different rooms to keep filming, to playing Tetris to try and, because I knew that she was saying, hey, look, the time's up. And I got through most of the property, but I hadn't got through out the back. And she said, she found me. And she said, oh, I'm closing up the house now. I said, oh, I just need to look out the back. And she says, "Oh, I've locked it up now." I said, "Oh, yeah, but your vendor won't let me, this is my only opportunity to take the photos and videos for my client. Your vendor won't let me come back." She goes, "Well, I've given you the full 30 minutes. And I said, "I won't take long. I'll just snip out the back. Do you want to just open it up for me?" And she's like, "Oh." She opened it up and I took my photos and my videos of all the areas for my client. You're going to be difficult. You're not my client. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get the information I need for my client. That's just how it's going to roll. And so I got what I needed, and she's basically on my heel, pushing me out, which is, to be honest with you, that's how real estate treats renters, which is a whole nother conversation, how the real estate industry treats renters. It's abysmal. It absolutely is abysmal. We ourselves have rented before, so I have personal experience of what it's like to be a renter. And it baffles me how real estate agents don't realise that people who rent also buy houses, number one, but that people who rent also already own houses, number two. And so if you're renting and have another house that you own, generally you're going to have that rented out. So you need a rental manager. So there is an opportunity for business, number three. But on the whole, my experience of being a renter and how I see renters treated is abysmal. The real estate industry really needs to do better when it comes to dealing with people who rent properties. So there seems to be this stereotype that real estate agents give to people who rent, and it is not warranted. I don't know if it's because, in my experience in the real estate industry, somebody that is in the rental department is a totally different type of person and personality type to someone's in the sales department. It's just a different personality. And I think that people in the rental department are very procedural, and it's just about ticking numbers. They've got to get it rented. They'll just do that. Whereas you have to be more, I'll use the word flamboyant, or more interactive, or probably better at building relationships in the sales area, because real estate is relational. It's generational and it's relational. And so, in my opinion, it's really important for you to maintain those relationships with people, no matter if they are looking to buy a house or rent a house, because you know what? That person renting that property is your future purchaser. They're your future potential sale that you'll be making as a home buyer. So, yes, lift your game. Again, not all rental departments, not all rental people. I can tell you that the rental managers that we work with, that manage our properties, we choose the cream of the crop, because I want my tenants to feel that their best interests are at heart, which it's their home, and so it needs to be treated as that. It's their home. And so it is certainly an area in real estate where there is much room for improvement. So yes, I got to get all the photos and videos for that particular property, which my client was thrilled with. So now we have the before pictures. Now, whether or not there's fair wear and tear and they're going to say, yeah, that's okay, let's find out when we settle in a few months. But that certainly has been an adventure, and I can very categorically clearly say that as soon as that ink wasn't even dry on the paper, the sales agent wiped his hands off it. And I don't know, it was a bit of a strange, weird experience working with that real estate agent, because as I referenced in previous episodes, he rang at odd times. And then on the Friday, so we'd finally got the deal done and signed the paperwork, and it was 5 o'clock on a Friday. And my phone rings and it's him. And I go, hi, what's up? And he's like, oh, I'm just at the pub, and I'm having a celebration drink, and I wanted to know if you wanted to come on down. And he was like an hour and a half away. And I'm like, I went, no. And here's the funny thing. I literally was at the hairdresser. So I got to say to someone, sorry, can't come because I'm washing my hair. Because I literally was washing my hair. And I wouldn't have come and had a drink with you anyway. All just a little bit strange. However, that's the world of real estate. You're dealing with good sorts and all sorts and licorice all sorts. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting working with what I do. We deal with all personalities. It's real estate agents, it's buyers, it's sellers, it's everybody. It's renters as well. Humans are emotional beings, and when it comes to things like real estate, which is your home, whether you're selling your home, whether you're buying your home, whether you're renting your home, it is your home, and you're not doing any of these things without a reason or a purpose or looking to take that next step. And that's where we support you. At chamberlainadvocates.com.au, we are here to be your advocate. It's in the name, it's written on the tin. We advocate for you when it comes to buying a property, when it comes to selling a property. We are your independent, trusted voice. And we work with a lot of first-time buyers. We work with upsizers, downsizers. We work with a lot of older people. They've never sold their house before, or they haven't done it for 30, 40 years, and they don't have the confidence to do it. As I've shared through many of my Property Mama episodes now, there's a bunch of shenanigans that goes on. And look, I laugh about it because I'm used to it and I know how to handle it because I deal with it all the time. But if that's not your jam, if you don't like confrontation, if you don't like knowing if people are lying or not, if you don't think that you can trust the person who you are giving your many thousand / million, multi-million dollar asset to sell, or the flip side, giving that money away to buy a property, we are here to help you. So please, if that is you, if you're in the market at the moment right now to buy a property and you haven't been able to find the one, please get in touch. Reach out across our socials. Come to our website, chamberlainadvocates.com.au, and we will be able to support you to finally have you be unlocking the door, opening the door, and stepping into your beautiful new home. So, as always, if you've got any questions, if you've got any topics you'd like me to cover, please reach out across our socials or on our chamberlainadvocates.com.au or even propertymama.com.au. If you would like to listen to past episodes of Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate, please do head to propertymama.com.au, or if you're listening to the podcast, it is available on your favourite platform. So that's it for me for now. Hope you've enjoyed today's stories, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon on our next adventure with the Property Mama.